What's going on, everyone? So, the San Antonio Spurs may have almost had Kristaps Porzingis, or at least Kristaps Porzingis thought he was being traded to the San Antonio Spurs. So that means there at least was some level of dialogue, because when Kristaps Porzingis was told that he was traded, he thought he was being traded to the Spurs. Now, we do know that the Spurs inquired about him and had interest in Kristaps Porzingis, but according to Sam Amico, the Kristaps Porzingis thought that he was traded to the Spurs. So Kristaps Porzingis thought he was being traded to the San Antonio Spurs before he was informed he was headed to Atlanta. Again, per Sam Amico or at Amico Hoops. Not gonna lie, I would have loved to have landed Kristaps Porzingis. And they kind of got Kelly Olynyk, which, I mean, not Kristaps Porzingis, but they kind of got Kelly Olynyk as that kind of floor spacer guy that can slot into either spot. But man, Kristaps Porzingis would have been so much fun. The only issue with Kristaps Porzingis is that you can't stay healthy. Right? Like you just don't know how many games he's going to play, even in the playoffs. I mean, you look at the last few seasons, played 42 games last year, 57 games the year before, 65 games, okay. I could live with that. But then he played 51 games, 43 games, 57 games, didn't play at all, 48 games, 66 and 72. So the most he's ever played in a season is 72, and that was his rookie season. Second most was the 66 in year two. Right? It says that he's had one season in which he played 65. That's the only problem. But when he plays, the guy is ridiculous. Right? And he would have been so much fun out there with him and Victor Wembanyama and their size, their length. Imagine trying to score amongst those trees, right? Like, and then both guys' ability to stretch the floor, so you could have ran all kinds of different actions with those two. Kristaps Porzingis, his ability to run pick and pop action, having De'Aaron Fox being able to create that dribble penetration and kick out to guys like Kristaps Porzingis, Victor Wembanyama. I saw the vision, right? Unfortunately, we're not going to get to see it on paper, but the reason I want to talk about this, people are going to be like, oh, why are you talking about it if it didn't happen? Because there's other guys in this league that could provide some similarity, right? Lauri Markkanen, for example, is a guy that I do think, there is similarities in the potential of like what could be. So I think looking and breaking down Kristaps Porzingis is a good way to kind of look at, and even just for the future, right? If that guy in the draft or, that guy ends up developing on one of these other teams or something where it's like, hey, let's go make a move. Let's go make a play for this guy. That's something to kind of keep an eye on. But again, Kristaps Porzingis, his biggest issue is just availability, right? And, he's 29. He'll be 30 literally in a couple days. So August 2nd. So literally like 2 days from now, depending on when you're watching it, could have already came. But 29, so he's going to be at 30 going into this year. So he still would have been young enough to be kind of a bit of a building block, right? And the beauty is he's not reliant on athleticism. Like, he's not this like super hyper athlete that like only gets by because of his athleticism. So I think he's a guy that, again, if he was able to stay healthy, that's the key. If he was able to stay healthy, I do think he would have aged nicely as far as his game goes, especially with his ability to stretch the floor, knock down the three ball. As he started to maybe decline and age out, I think you could have easily been a guy that you move to the bench and kind of play in that like Al Horford role off the bench, who can slot into either the 4 or the 5, knock down the three ball, be a little bit of a lob threat, because he does have some athleticism. He's just not this like crazy hyper athlete that is only reliant on his athleticism. He's a guy that had really nice balance. So I think he would have been somebody that would have been nice. And I also don't hate the possibility of maybe bringing him in next season. So this year he is on his final year of a $30.70 million contract. So he'll be an unrestricted free agent. So that's another reason why I kind of like the idea of talking about him, to explore the possibilities and potentials of bringing in a Kristaps Porzingis. Now, if he does well in Atlanta and Atlanta likes him, then he probably signs a new deal in Atlanta. But it also depends on how much is he going to want. If he's going to want, 30, 40 million, something like that, then you're probably not doing that. But, if he's like, hey, I'll go to a team like the Spurs, especially like, because he got a 2-year, $30 million a year deal. what if you were like, if you were the Spurs, maybe you gave like, 4-year 100 million or 4-year maybe 80 million and kind of, front load the contract, something like that. Maybe give them 20 million a year. It's like, hey, you're getting an extra 20 million. You kind of get it over a couple years. Like I said, as he kind of ages out, you could kind of bring him in a backup role. It just, his shooting would be incredibly welcomed, right? Especially for a Spurs team where it's like, you look at it and it's like, what's the biggest flaw potentially? Say potentially, because you never know. How does Wemby take strides shooting this year and so on and so forth. But you kind of look at like what is most likely going to be the biggest issue with this team, and it's like the lack of shooting, right? The lack of 3-point shooting. If he can find his strides and if he was able to slot in alongside Victor Wembanyama, you talk about a guy that can, he can light it up with the best of them, right? So he's a guy that even beyond this season, he's a guy that I would look at if I'm the Spurs in the offseason. But let's get into the numbers here a little bit. Because, the guy, again, he's ridiculous. You're talking 7'2", 7'3", with like a 7'6" wingspan. The guy has the size, the length, the versatility. But last year, 42 games played, 42 games started, 28.8 minutes per game, 13.7 field goal attempts per game, shot 48.3% from the floor. On 6 attempts, he shot 41.2% from 3-point range on 6 attempts. Last few seasons, he shot really good. Shot 41.2% from 3-point range. The previous year, he shot 38% on 5.1 attempts. Then he shot 39% on 5.5 attempts. He is a career 37% 3-point shooter on 5.2 attempts. So again, good shooter, high volume, especially for a big man, guy 7'2". Also, I think it would have helped Wemby a lot because Wemby likes to take 8 threes a game. It would have been nice to have a guy in Kristaps Porzingis who could have maybe helped and worked with him as far as his shooting goes. But 2-point range on 7.7 attempts, shot 53.7%. EFG of 57.2%. Free throw line on 4.7 attempts, shot 81% from the foul line. Rebounds, 6.8 rebounds, 2.1 assists, a steal, 1.5 blocks, and 20 points per game, 19.5 if you want to be exact. And he's a career 20-point-a-game guy. He's a career 20-8 guy with 2 assists, a steal, and almost 2 blocks, 1.8 blocks. So he's a guy that can play defense, be a rim deterrent. He would have been fantastic because even like when Wemby goes to the bench and stuff, you still could have went and slotted in a Kristaps Porzingis to kind of be your starter and still be that rim protector and all that stuff. So just something to kind of keep in mind. But I just thought it was funny that he thought he was going to be traded to the Spurs when he was told that he's getting traded, which means that the Spurs must have been pretty close if they were, Porzingis thought that was the trade that got done. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Also, if you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.